All right, everyone, we are supposedly live. Give me a minute to make sure that we actually are. By the way, it's not Psaki over there. It's Kamala Harris again. We've got to listen to her, unfortunately. So yeah, give it a moment. Make sure that it's everything's live. Yeah, looks like it's working. By the way, we are live on both YouTube and Twitch. Links in the description regardless to both, as well as to other sites that I use. We're going to give a minute here, actually. At the moment, only people on YouTube watching. I'm not surprised at that. There's only about 1,000 people following on Twitch, but some people will get the notification. I figured why not? Makes no sense not to branch out into other platforms. YouTube these days getting worse and worse at notifying people, so whatever. By the way, already 200 people watching all on YouTube. That's 2/3 of a BLU, a Biden loser unit. With the problems in Afghanistan right now, I have a feeling there will be an address later tonight. It'll probably be like the last 3 or 4 addresses where he doesn't take any questions or they're pre-scripted. He makes sure that he knows exactly what those will be. Now, I believe it is the YouTube volume specifically. So I'm going to be playing this for a moment. Tell me if it is audible. Tell me if you can hear this all right. Yeah. Okay, people are saying there's no audio. Actually, just a sec. Stop screen. Just a sec. I should be able to rectify this without fucking around with anything. All right. Okay, now tell me if the audio is okay.
You know, I am the first vice president to visit Vietnam since diplomatic relations were established in 1995. And I believe that this trip signals the beginning of the next chapter in the relationship between the United States.
Yeah, some people are probably thinking, oh shit, I wish the audio would continue not working. I should have just gone with that for the rest of the show. But anyway, we're going to listen to Kamala Harris here intermittently. I might do the Jen Psaki address that she actually did the other day, I believe. And also we got to talk about some leftoids, like the Amazing Atheist is completely sold out and going against Pacman, actually trying to regain relevance. And he even basically talks about that at the beginning of the video. He's in favor of the government censoring people or companies censoring people for wrongthink. And the funny thing is, he said, well, this is literally his words. People are entitled to their own opinion, but they're not entitled to their own facts. I'm thinking to myself, this comports exactly to essentially everyone ratioing you in the comments section. You can look up the Amazing Atheist and give him a downvote maybe on his last video. If he were to have made such a video around the 9/11 era, it would have been very, very, very funny. So anyway, we're going to listen to Kamala Harris and ridicule her first because, you know, it's just for shits and giggles. This was actually earlier. This is not live. I was going to bring you live coverage the other night, but of course the White House schedule is so frenetic, is so terrible. It's more chaotic than the Afghan airport withdrawal. So let's listen to Kamala Harris be Squidward here for a little while.
States and Vietnam.
My apologies.
We have had an enduring commitment to this relationship because it matters to the people, to the security, and to the prosperity of the American people.
Yeah. By the way, Benjamin HHC. Hi, Sticks. Buy some here, Sticks. Buy some ammo. Yeah, thank you for that. $7 probably buy less than 50 rounds of 22 long rifle at this point. You should see the costs. You can buy ammo online, by the way, for all of you who are in the U.S. and some of you in Canada. You should definitely get some. But we're going to listen to Kamala Harris mainly and just ridicule her. It isn't, I mean, I know it's low-hanging fruit, but it's still fun. This is something new that I'm just sort of branching out into, just reacting to shit. I can't do this for the average channel. Like, I would like to pull up the Amazing Atheists video and ridicule him. But the thing is, technically speaking, like a private user on YouTube has more rights than the White House does. Like, their stuff is it's a free-for-all. I can do whatever the fuck I want with Kamala Harris here, and there's nobody can do anything about it because they're not gonna file a copyright complaint because the White House can't copyright it. It's just a press briefing. It's a little bit different when it's a private individual. I wish otherwise. I wish that there were more clear-cut lines around fair use. Also, Shoe on Head, got to talk about her and her Twitter screed against me, trying to own me and failing. That happens a lot these days among leftoids, and some people on the Trump derangement right as well. Big L, who is or was worse, Biden or Woodrow Wilson? Well, Biden hasn't had a stroke and been incapacitated yet, but I mean, there's plenty of time. He's had several aneurysms. Christopher DeBow, if they put shock collars on politicians and charge the American public $50,000 to zap them, you could pay off the national debt. Yeah, but you'd end up with all the dead politicians, and then no one would want the job, so there wouldn't be anyone to zap. Brian Francis, hearing 4 Marines died. Yes, a bunch of Marines have died at the Kabul airport, along with potentially dozens of civilians, possibly hundreds, depending on who you listen to. There have been lots of casualties. This is Biden's fault. But if he gives a presser later, he'll probably blame it on Trump or say it was inevitable. The withdrawal was always going to be messy, but I got us out of Afghanistan. You know, the other guy wanted to get us out 6 weeks earlier, but I'd say it's not my responsibility anything went wrong, but it is absolutely my credit if things go right.
And we believe the people of Vietnam. In fact, our cooperation on a whole host of issues today shows that the trajectory of our relationship since the normalization has been nothing short of remarkable. When we think about where we have been.
She's still doing the arm thing here.
And where we are headed. Now we are strengthening our partnership. Together, we will take on the traditional issues and challenges, and we will take on those of the future, seeing within those challenges also the opportunities that we have to forge new aspects of our relationship.
She's worse than Dan Quayle. And by the way, our border czar, which is also Kamala Harris, still hasn't visited the southern border. But she never will. I mean, you know, then she might have to have a photo op with the dirty children, and that'd be a big problem. She's waiting till the border crisis is resolved, aka after she is out of office.
First, I know that the COVID-19 surge is the #1 issue for the Vietnamese people right now.
I don't think that they give a shit about COVID. I think the biggest issue is the fact that China keeps bullying their fishing vessels, but Kamala wouldn't know that. Kamala's a Beijing asset.
As evidenced by the trip we took recently, just this afternoon, to the National Institutes of Hygiene to deliver 1 million vaccines from the United States to the people of Vietnam on top of the 5 million.
Have you ever seen that dance that they used to do like back in the 20s where they always had their elbows out and they would chant and dance like this? That Kamala Harris reminds me of that on a regular basis. She does it every time she speaks. It must be some sort of nervous tic or something like that. She doesn't even believe what she's saying. She's just reading a script anyway. Nikolai Jenemon, greetings from Norway. Excellent.
That we've already shared. Just as you stood with us, and I say this to the people of Vietnam, during the earliest days of the pandemic, as early as spring of 2020, we now are here for you in this moment of need. More United States-sourced vaccinations arrive.
Vaccinations. And she can't even read her notes straight. And the irony of her being in Vietnam while the Kabul airport looks like a worse version of the Saigon airlift. I mean, I don't even know what this administration at this point is playing at. They're so inept, it almost goes past ineptitude. There's got to be some actual planning. It's like if you watch Scooby-Doo or something, all the criminals and shit that they capture are always inept, but it's scripted. You know, somebody wrote that up. It was meant to be slapstick. It's the slapstick administration. That's almost what it reminds me of.
Arrived through COVAX in Hanoi this morning. We are also supplying freezers to distribute the vaccines and providing.
See, you know, the American citizens, they don't need freezers, though. Yeah, fuck them.
Millions in public health assistance, millions of dollars in public health assistance. And we opened a new CDC Southeast Asia regional office. We do intend and hope that the people of Vietnam know that we will be with you as you battle this surge.
She just glitched out for no reason.
Even in the midst of the pandemic.
HF, you're the man, Sticks, or should I say the he, him, LMAO. Simple Logic 90. My God, my God. Yeah, there are a lot of people saying that when they hear Kamala Harris speak. By the way, almost 100 people actually watching on Twitch at the moment. More than expected, considering I only got on there like 2 streams ago. So, okay, Mia by Dweez Droid Brisboys. Probably butchering that, but Amish Space Force. Camel Toe owes her entire political career to Willie Brown's Brown Willie. Yes, she does. Evil Bunny. Did you see Kamala overruled staffers who tried to stop her from putting flowers on the Vietnam War Memorial for shooting down McCain? Not a McCain memorial, but actually, yay, Vietnam. With this admin, we are doomed. Yeah, but it's her fellow warmonger. She's just too stupid to understand what the memorial was.
We will continue to partner together to strengthen our
She's
economic
literally
ties.
stupid.
For example, during our meetings with the officials and leaders here in Vietnam, I advocated for a reduction of tariffs on American agricultural goods, and there was a positive reaction. And we're looking forward to following up on that conversation.
Yeah.
We also launched initiatives that will help Vietnam transition to a more digital economy. And
meanwhile, she's trying to censor as many people as possible in the Western Hemisphere. We've launched initiatives to help the Vietnamese people. Well, you know, there are a bunch of U.S. people in the Kabul airport right now, which are being attacked by terrorists. But, you know, Kamala didn't think to talk about that. But this was a few hours ago. I think this was slightly before, actually, the terrorist attacks that happened a few hours ago there. So we'll get to that separately. We're just going to watch Kamala for a couple more minutes. I'm not going to fucking watch. I'm not going to make you sit through the whole thing. Trust me. I don't want you to become bulimic.
It will help grow women and ethnic minority-owned businesses. As part of our
ethnic minority-owned businesses in Vietnam. Oh, this Cambodian here has a pretty great steak shack, so we're going to have to fund it.
Economic partnership, we have also reached agreements about the importance of addressing the climate crisis and collaborating toward a clean energy future. In addition to the extensive conversations that I've had with the leaders of the Vietnamese government, I've also had.
You remember that time that the president of Guatemala called her out on live stage? I wonder if the Vietnamese will call her out too and be like, hey, green energy. Our northern neighbors that keep harassing our fishing vessels just built like what, 20 new coal power plants this year? Why don't you talk about that, Kamala?
Had conversations with young leaders who are working in the community on this very issue. We launched, as part of our initiative on working together in partnership on the climate crisis, the Mekong Coastal Habitat Conservation Program to help with issues that are impacting the Mekong Delta region.
She couldn't even find it on a map. She couldn't even find Vietnam on a map. She doesn't even know where she is right now. This is the problem with this administration. They are so goddamn inept when it comes to anything outside of the United States. Biden was mainly like a domestic policy senator. She was in California as a prosecutor. They don't know anything about Vietnam or Afghanistan or any of these places. This is why Trump did a good job, because he had done business in a dozen other fucking countries, including places like China and Vietnam. Kamala Harris has never created a job in her life. She's never been in I don't even think she's been in private business, actually. Mark Peterson, thanks for all your work. How can we fix the world when Pelosi won't even deal with her homeless situation? Yeah, it's funny. Airbnb will take 20,000 people, 20,000 Afghan refugees, so-called, and house them temporarily for free. They're going to pay for it. Meanwhile, the U.S. homeless population, I don't know. They're a secondary priority. Fuck them. Let them live under a bridge, says Airbnb.
And I welcomed Vietnam in joining the Agricultural Innovation Mission for Climate, because we know we need to accelerate the adoption of climate-smart agriculture.
See, the funny thing is, like, the average Vietnamese farmer already doesn't use, like, mechanized farming. Those rice paddies and shit, a lot of that's by hand. It's third world agriculture. This is the way most of the world works. CO2 emissions, Jesus Christ, you'd be hard-pressed to find a goddamn tractor in some of the smaller villages and stuff. People in the urban area, they're not exactly rice farming. Not even a stereotype. I mean, that's like one of the main exports there. She doesn't know what she's talking about. This is the problem with politics.
And in fact, I had extensive conversations also with the Prime Minister yesterday about the connection between that technology and the work that we are doing in the United States in terms of space program.
I like how she always jerks her face to the side too, like it's a Marilyn Manson music video and he's pretending to tweak out or something. She's like Marilyn Manson, only lacking the coolness. And any Me Too allegations against her are probably legit. Rebecca Ash, my heart is broken for those families who have lost loved ones. Oh, there'll be a lot more in the next week or so, thanks to Beijing Biden's meddling and stupidity. Congo Bungo, got a soda streamer or similar. Oh, get a soda streamer. They have energy drink syrups and their plastic bottles can be washed. I am not sponsored by anybody. Yeah, I'd rather just drink the normal energy drinks. I might get cancer, but yeah, you know, you live long enough, you die anyway. Silver Kestrel, would you return to fight for your home if and when it comes to that? I don't think it will, thankfully. I think people toss Biden aside before too long. I can't imagine that after the Afghanistan terrorist attacks today that he's going to have much support. WebSoak, ethnic minorities? Oh, I believe there's an ethnic minority of Slavs in New York. Maybe we should take millions of immigrants from Ukraine and send them to New York. Yeah, well, we do worse things, that's for sure. Sentinel Rex. This trip was planned before Afghanistan fell. Her original speech in Saigon was supposed to be a positive contrast between how the withdrawal went in Afghanistan as opposed to how Vietnam went. Where's your source for that? Because, I mean, that would be a big policy blunder, too. If you're in Vietnam, you don't want to talk about the Vietnam War unless it's like, hey, you know, we regret this and it was a bad thing and now we're together. And I don't know. I'm not calling bullshit, but I mean, it is the Biden administration, so it might be inept enough to do that. But I'd like to see a little bit of a source for that. Kevin Bergman, should I pick winged or regular Ouroboros tea? Both. Nah, just flip a coin. Dead Kulak, Sets Unfair Sticks. Harris has done plenty of jobs with her hands and her mouth. But yeah, she has. And with other holes, probably too. The Right Honorable, the problem with third world nations is they burn lots of wood and dung, which are much more dirty than the methods we use for power. Yeah, and especially in North Korea. The Prime Minister expressed a real interest in working together with us, understanding that part of that program would include what we can do around satellite technology, helping farmers in terms of predicting weather cycles. We all agree, and certainly the UN published the report in the last couple of weeks, that the climate issue has reached crisis proportions when, as we all know, So here she is. She's the border czar, hasn't visited the border. Afghanistan is falling into shambles. No mention of that or anything like that. She's too busy talking about the climate. Climate change has become, they've forsaken literally every other issue, and now they're recycling the late 2000s because they've got nothing else to talk about that'll actually congeal the average liberal. Don't you think that at some point the administration has lost the plot slightly? Hey, we're going to go back here. Fuck this. I can't listen to Kamala anymore. It's all right, Kitty. Let's see. President Biden holds a meeting to discuss how we can improve the nation's cybersecurity. That sounds boring because he doesn't know how to use a fucking computer. President Biden delivers remarks on our ongoing efforts in Afghanistan. That sounds better. Yeah. This is the one from the other day. Yeah, he always comes out masked and then takes it off like, you know, a lot of fucking good that's going to do anyway, even if it weren't a cloth mask. This is the one for the other day that was hours late and badly truncated. And I can't remember at the end whether he answered any questions or he just did a 180. But first and foremost, let's address as well, for those just joining, the amazing atheist, who some of you might be aware of, has completely sold out on free speech. He has a video bitching about Kyle Kulinski saying, hey, it's not a good idea for the government and corporations to police speech. TJ's idea is, well, it actually is, because you know, you can have whatever opinions you want, but if you're claiming it as a fact, that becomes a big problem. I guess the idea is that some rando on Facebook claiming authoritative knowledge of COVID is somehow going to kill a bunch of people and the government needs to get involved. Be interesting to hear him say that 10 years ago, or 20. As long as he's been supposedly relevant.
That I had the leaders of the G7.
Come on, man.
earlier today. I want to say a word.
Here we've got the less intelligent version of George W. if he had Alzheimer's speaking. So pay him some respect. Very respectable man.
About the progress.
Corn Pop learned that the hard way.
On the Build Back Better agenda here at home. Just got off the telephone with the leaders in the House. Today, the House of Representatives has taken a significant step toward making a historic investment that's going to transform America, cut taxes for working families, and position the American economy for long-term growth.
See, I like this. We've already got a lie. Taxes will not drop under the infrastructure plan for the average middle-class American. If anything, they will rise, partially due to inflation. The only group that'll actually do well are people in high-tax liberal states like New York or New Jersey or wherever, if they make us at least mid-six figures, because he intends to scrap the cap on the SALT deduction. It's a $10,000 cap on the deduction for certain expenses, taxes. If you're in a state where the tax rate is considered to be considerably above median, so mainly blue states, California, whatever. Trump capped it in order to limit the amount of a write-off that a person could take. The cap is still very high. You still have to make at least a considerable amount of money, more than I make. Something like, I think the cutoff's probably 150, 200 grand. So a pretty good income. You have to be at that level before that cap even kicks in. Biden's going to do away with it. So it'll help the billionaires. They'll be able to write off millions more of income per year very easily. But trust me, he's going to lower taxes on the middle class.
When I became president, it was clear that we had to confront an immediate economic crisis, the most significant recession we've had since the Depression, or at least since Johnson. But that wasn't going to be enough. We also had to make some long-term investments.
Yeah. I see Jack E Dog 13 on Twitch. What the fuck is he talking about this plan? Nobody cares about it. Stop it, Sticks. The 10K cap, 5K for individuals, affects people who make less than $1,000 a year. No, not really. No, it doesn't. You're talking about excess tax rates above and beyond. That's you're living in a state where the state tax and the local expenses and stuff are quite high. You have to make a fairly considerable amount to get to that 10K cap. So what I'm talking about is that people making more than would cap at 10K are the ones that aren't getting any additional benefits under the Trump plan. Biden is planning to remove the cap. That cap, you couldn't make $1,000 a year and have a $10,000 write-off. That wouldn't make any sense. You have to make a considerable amount to even owe $10,000 in taxes. Even self-employed, you have to make a reasonable amount of money.
In Americans and America itself.
By the way, if anyone has breaking news with regards to the Kabul airport or anything like that, you can go ahead and post it in chat. I may or may not see it.
The first thing we
do have an update by Mick Mokum. 10 U.S. service members killed, according to Fox News. Jen Griffin. Can't confirm. Likely. I would expect it to be higher than the initial, I think, 4 casualties that were claimed. Cat's trying to sit on my earbuds. Here, let me get that out from under you, kitty. Yeah, you can sit down. It's okay. You can be there. Just not on the earbuds. You got to leave the computer equipment alone. She has gotten back into the habit of sleeping on my lap, by the way. It's very cute. Anyway, we'll get back to Sleepy Joe.
American Rescue Plan, and it's working. Our economy has added 4 million jobs in my first 6 months in office.
And over 15 points of inflation.
Economic growth is up to the fastest rate in 40 years.
That's a lie. It was actually at its fastest at the end of the Trump administration. Trump had the fastest economic growth. Again, though, that was just rebound from losses due to COVID. When he claims that it's the fastest, that's an outright lie. When he insinuates that it's fast, again, it's still technically a lie. It has nothing to do with federal policy. It has to do with states.
And unemployment is coming down. Right now, our economic growth is leading the world's advanced economies.
That's also a lie.
To win the future, we need to take the next step. Today, the House of Representatives did just that. Today's vote in the House allowed them to consider my Build Back Better agenda
By the way, this is billed as having to do with the ongoing efforts in Afghanistan. Can anyone tell me when he's mentioned Afghanistan in the first minute and a half of this speech? He saves that for last. He's hoping that people get bored and tune out so that he doesn't have to tell them the God's honest truth, which is, hey, Afghanistan's a shithole and I helped make it that way. That's what he's hoping for. Ted Kaczynski, package bomb go boom. Joe's rating going down 2%. Yeah, he'll lose support. It hasn't done cratering, not by a long shot. Liam Sexton, glad I joined the Navy instead of the Marines, or I'd probably be in Kabul hating my life right now. Yeah, you get to go fishing. The Marines have to sit there in the steppe next to the goddamn airport and, you know, get fired upon, knowing that the commander-in-chief doesn't even give a shit about their lives.
A broad framework.
But he doesn't give a shit about yours either. If pirates attack you, you'd better just run.
By giving Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices for drugs, make elder care more affordable, provide 2 years of free universal high-quality pre-K, and 2 years of free community college, provide clean energy tax credits.
Riddle me this. If you get millions of additional people trying to take advantage of that free, aka taxpayer-funded, community college, what will happen? Will it be considerably larger class sizes leading to lower educational standards? In some cases. Will lead to the government having to spend more money to rapidly expand the community college programs? In some cases. By the way, who will pay for that? Again, the taxpayers. That's wonderful. And then when 99% of the population has 2 years of community college course study, what will it mean for the average person? Not a goddamn thing. It'll be the same as graduating high school means now.
Continue to give the middle-class families the well-deserved tax cut for daycare and healthcare that they deserve, allowing a lot of women to get back to work primarily, and provide significant monthly tax cuts for working families with children through the child care tax credit. These investments are going to lower out-of-pocket expenses for families and not just give them a little more breathing room. In addition, we're going to make long overdue, much needed investments in basic, hard infrastructure of this nation.
The basic hard infrastructure. Hey, that bridge had some rust spots on it. Yeah, $10 million. That's not a lot, right? I can make that in no time, says Joe Biden as he tells Hunter, hey, you need to smoke some crack and make a few more art pieces.
This is an area where we have broad bipartisan agreement to invest in our antiquated roads, highways, bridges, transit, drinking water systems.
Tranky water systems? I know what he means, but it's funny when his words run together anyway.
Broadband, clean energy, environmental cleanup, and making infrastructure more resilient to the climate crisis, and so much more. And this is all paid for. Instead of giving every break in the world to corporations and CEOs, by the way, 55 of our largest companies in America paid $0 in federal taxes on more than $40 billion in profit last year. We can ask corporations and the very wealthy just to pay their fair share.
They got to pay their fair share, man. See, the problem is that they already do. But Biden doesn't understand anything about business. He doesn't understand anything about commerce. That's the whole problem with our leadership. So-called, of course.
They can still be very wealthy. They can still make a lot of money, but just begin to pay their fair share. So we can invest in making our country stronger.
Yeah. Adam THM, Biden's first 7 months are exactly what the MSM said Trump's presidency would have been. Yeah, exactly. He's been as dysfunctional as they predicted that he would be. Remember when Paul Krugman, at the outset of the last election, well, for the 2016, said that if Trump's elected, it'll cause a depression? Well, that never happened. The economy was going fine until the China virus, and then, of course, the states decided to fuck their own economies. Really, now we're in a recession, though. We've got considerable inflation. Jobless claims, by the way, just crawled upwards again, above expected. And we've got major diplomatic crises. Well, there you go.
Stronger and more competitive. Create jobs and raise wages and lift up the standard of living for everyone.
Zero Hedge update. At least 43 have been killed and 130 injured in Thursday's dual blast near the Kabul airport. According to New York Times reporter Fahim Abed, 60% of the wounded are in critical condition, which means some of them will die. Elizabeth Miller, Sticks, please tell audience that do not know. 10 service members killed at Kabul airport, 120 plus injured, 40 plus dead. Hashtag court-martial Biden. Yeah, he's really fucked. He is genuinely fucked. And all the rhino cons will do the wrong thing and then say, well, this is proof we need to stay in longer. No, it's good that we're getting out. It's just not good that Biden fucked up the withdrawal. That's the only point. All we wanted was to have a clean withdrawal. This dude's, he's 3 minutes into this address that he gave the other day. Now, you've already got problems in Afghanistan, right? He hasn't even mentioned Afghanistan. He's sitting here rambling about the infrastructure bill. I think this is the one that was several hours late, and at the end, I don't even remember if he took questions. We're going to watch the whole fucking thing, though. It's only 12 minutes long, so yeah, I mean, you can stay awake for that.
Everyone. The bottom line is,
this is a shit show. This is insane.
Investing in America.
Can you imagine, by the way, if Trump had done this, if anything comparable to this had happened under Trump, can you imagine? The legacy media would have had blood coming from its eyes and its wherever, and at 10,000 other places, it would have been calling for the 25th Amendment. They probably would have been successful. But these people won't even ask him a fucking question. They won't even criticize him. They won't even write a write-up on fucking Substack if he doesn't take questions.
People position our economy for long-term growth.
Yeah, Warmonger X22 saying Benghazi 2.0. Oh, it's worse than Benghazi. Already far more casualties, and that was just in one blast. It's way worse than Benghazi. This is his Katrina moment. This is more like Hurricane Katrina, only it's not a domestic policy issue. By the way, that means that he'll hemorrhage less support than Bush did. Because the American people, ultimately, at the end of the day, people are selfish. And I don't say that as an insult. I just say people care more about what's local or regional than something that happens halfway across the world. So if a bunch of Afghan civilians or even US soldiers die, it doesn't register quite so much. It should. I mean, it's still a tragedy, but generally speaking, the actual effect on his metrics will be less. I still expect him to lose several points more support, which puts him deep, deep underwater. 4 or 5 points underwater, and that's in push polling. So, yeah.
And building an America that outcompetes.
By the way, Tiadan Uraj, Biden is screwed, yes, but the average American voter will still vote Democrat. Just wait and see. Actually, if you look at the generic ballot, the Republicans are ahead. And that doesn't usually happen because the Democrats do have more registered voters. So if the GOP is even close to even in the generic ballot, trust me, they think it's a red letter day. I don't think the Democrats are going to do well in the midterms. And it'll partially be because of Biden. Not completely, but partially.
The rest of the world. My goal is to build an economy from the bottom up and the middle out, not just the top down. And that's where
I love how he always uses that line. The only thing that's happening from the middle out is the obesity epidemic because you keep telling people they're not allowed to go to the gym without wearing a hazmat suit.
my way of doing. Look, I want to thank Speaker Pelosi, who was masterful in leadership on this. And
I want to thank Speaker Pelosi.
And Chairman DeFazio.
I want to thank Speaker Pelosi for letting me look at her tits, he says.
For the hard work, dedication, and
It
determination.
cured me of my
to
problem
bring
of
people
staring at
together
mammary
to
glands.
Make a difference in people's lives. I also want to thank every Democrat in the House who worked so hard over the past few weeks to reach an agreement and who supported the process.
Okay, he's now 1/3 of the way through this very short speech, and he hasn't even addressed Afghanistan once. Yeah, I know that people are talking about Afghanistan, it's important and stuff. But hey, guys, the Democrat-controlled House just passed a Democrat-sponsored bill. Wow, wowie kazowie. How exciting.
House consideration of the jobs and infrastructure plan, the Build Back Better effort. There were differences, strong points of view. They're always welcome. What is important is that we came together.
We got WG there, spent almost 4 years in Afghanistan with a year in Kabul. We saw this coming a decade ago. This isn't Biden's problem alone. SecDef, Austin, General Milley and Miller need to be fired. Lastly, you can't buy an Afghan's loyalty, only rent it, e.g. Karzai. Yeah, that's true. It's not entirely Biden's fault, but the withdrawal, it is.
Who did that, I think everyone who did it.
Liam Sexton, rip to those proud Marines. Those guys took the same oath I did and paid the ultimate price for it. Hopefully the Checoms don't get me out at sea. Yeah, well, I mean, they'd have to have a good Navy first. Their land capabilities are way better. Fred Jabubi, why is there a signer instead of a closed captioning? My phone can do voice and text in real time. The White House doesn't have software to do the same. Let me,
was there.
If I turn on closed captioning, are we going to see some weird shit?
Voting Rights Act. You know, advancing It's an act to restore and expand voting protections, to prevent
I think
voter
that's what he
suppression,
wanted.
and to
maybe.
secure the most sacred of American rights, the right to vote freely, the right to vote fairly, and the right to have your vote counted.
Especially if you're dead.
The Senate also has to join them to send this important.
I'm assuming that they must do them manually because they're better than the average YouTube closed captions. Jesus, if you've seen those.
It has to move forward on the People's Act, critical legislation to protect our democracy and the right to vote. We need both of those election bills. But let me now turn to Afghanistan.
Okay, we're 5 minutes in to a 12.5-minute speech. Finally, he's getting to the sum and substance of the actual title of the video, which means he'll spend about 5 minutes talking about that, and then he'll meander around and probably do a 180 and leave.
I've met this morning with my counterparts in the G7, as well as heads of the United Nations, NATO, and the European Union. I express my thanks for the solidarity we have seen as we've stood up an unprecedented global effort.
Now, keep in mind, this is not a live reaction. There's a reason why I didn't put live in the title. To those of you not aware, this is Biden from the other day. So this is before the terrorist attacks that have happened today at the Kabul airport. Those are terrible. The death toll keeps mounting. It's Biden's Katrina moment. My only worry is that it doesn't knock him out of office. It should. He deserves to be 25th at this point. His cabinet should begin resigning. I know if I was in his cabinet, I'd be getting nervous right now. That being said, this is from the other day. I expect an address later from Joe Biden. He'll probably do an emergency address, but they got to script it first. And he's not going to take questions. At this one, I don't even know if he takes questions at the end of this one, to tell the truth. On a good day, he might take a couple of softballs that have been pre-screened. So we'll continue and listen to Beijing Biden meander on.
I updated our partners on the significant progress we made in the past 10 days. As of this
by the way, that didn't age well, that particular statement.
afternoon, we've helped evacuate 70,700 people just since August the 14th, 75,900 people since the end of July. Just in the past 12 hours, another 19 U.S. military flights, 18 C-17s and 1 C-130 carrying approximately 6,400 evacuees, and 31 coalition flights carrying 5,600 people.
Bianca Blast is saying another explosion has been reported. Kyle C. is corroborating this, so I'm assuming this is true. Okay, so there appears to have been live with Sticks, X, and Hammer update. We've got breaking news. Apparently, there has been a third terrorist attack at the Kabul airport. Why am I not goddamn surprised? Why am I not surprised in the goddamn least? There's going to be more of them. They fired on an Italian aircraft actually earlier. It was just evacuating people. I mean, they didn't bring it down or anything like that, but they fired rounds at the aircraft. They're going to keep doing this. ISIS is in the area, and let me say something else. And I pointed this out earlier on a video, so this is important. If the Taliban truly aren't working with ISIS, then they must be goddamn stupid, or they're being bribed. Because supposedly they have all of Kabul basically walled up. They get security checkpoints everywhere. They run the city. ISIS doesn't work directly with the Taliban. This is something that Biden's actually correct about. The Taliban is a nationalistic or quasi-nationalistic group. ISIS they want a pan-caliphate. They want to roll up Afghanistan with a bunch of other countries. So if they're not working together, then either the border checkpoints are bribe subject, and ISIS got through that way, or unfortunately, other shenanigans are happening, because otherwise ISIS wouldn't get close enough to the airport to be able to do these things. They couldn't suicide bomb the airport. Either that or the Taliban's just too fucking stupid to do border security. But they've had years and years to train for this sort of stuff. They're native to this area. Some of these people come from Kabul. They're not all even Taliban. So yeah, we've got a third explosion and gunfire at the Kabul airport. So we'll see how many more people will die because of Joe Biden's poor decision making. Well, says Joe, it's okay. We're very concerned with getting the Afghans airlifted out to be refugees, but as long as they're dying there at the airport, it's not a priority to the fucker. So we'll listen to Beijing Biden. But yes, update, live news update is there is a third explosion at the Kabul airport. Maybe this will be Biden's 9/11 more than Biden's Katrina. Say, well, come on, man, we got to stay in the country because we had some attacks.
Have left Kabul just in the last 12 hours.
Here he is bragging about his progress. What a retard.
Since I updated you this morning. These numbers are a testament to the efforts of our brave service women and men, to our diplomats on the ground in Kabul, and to our allies still standing with us. And we had a productive discussion. There was strong agreement among the leaders about the evacuation mission underway, as well as the need to coordinate our approach to Afghanistan as we move forward.
See, here's the problem. There was already coordination and agreement before for May 1st, and none of this would have happened. None of it. That's the whole problem. Had Biden just stuck to the initial withdrawal, it wouldn't happen. Coordination, you left behind an enormous amount of firepower in the country. Imagine if ISIS uses some stolen 50 cals or something like that to bring down a jet when it's just lifting off from the airport, and they find out. Imagine if they find out that a US-made drone was flown into the goddamn engine of a goddamn aircraft right as it was lifting off, and it goes careening off the runway into a fireball. Imagine what happens to Biden then. And that's the worst thing is that's not even beyond the realm of probability. It's likely at this point. Three terrorist attacks in a single day already, plus fire on aircraft. There are obviously ISIS is all around Kabul. What the fuck are we supposed to do? At some point, we're going to have hostages in the country. They're going to be protected by the Taliban, and we're going to have to broker their release. Unfortunately, I'm telling you this. I think this situation gets way worse before it gets better. And this is already this is a 9 out of 10 on a fucked up scale at least. It is on a Katrina level. It's that big a disaster, logistically and in every other way.
First, on evacuation, we agreed that we will continue to our close cooperation to get people out as efficiently and safely as possible.
I bet the U.S. servicemen that were splattered in these 3 attacks today, they're just glowing with agreement, Mr. Biden. You did our boys well, or girls, or Zeerfolk. These days you can't discriminate. I'm sure they're very happy. They died defending the airport that you abandoned tens of thousands of people in. They're really happy about that. They died bravely, unlike you, and unlike your moron son. Not the one that did die bravely. He died of cancer because of depleted uranium. What about the crack smoking one that you embezzle money off of? I think his foreign policy is a lot more like Hunter Biden than Beau Biden.
Currently on a pace.
Beau Biden is looking down,
31st.
frowning at his father.
The sooner we can finish, the better.
He's ashamed of you, Joe.
Operations brings added risk to our troops. But the completion by August 31st depends upon the Taliban continuing to cooperate and allow access to the airport for those who were transporting out and no disruptions to our operations. In addition, I've asked the Pentagon and the State Department.
Dinocide 13, probably more Afghans in the U.S. than Americans left in Afghanistan. Probably. Although, again, they're holding them in third-party nations like Qatar. The problem is that technically runs afoul of the safe third country policy that the United States is assignee to. Just like how SCOTUS smacked Biden in the balls the other day on Remain in Mexico, because Mexico has said, well, we'll take refugees from all these areas south, which means technically in order to be a refugee, they have to settle there. They can't continue moving to a third country beyond that because then it shows that they're no longer evacuating just for their safety, their concerns due to politics or suppression or something. Wouldn't the same be true? If we fly a bunch of people who want to be refugees because the Taliban's going to behead them if they're left behind, and they land in Qatar and they stay there, shouldn't they stay in Qatar? Technically, because they've made it clear that they're willing to take refugees. They don't have any right to come to the United States. And that's under both U.S. and international conventions.
Department.
But Biden won't tell people that.
The timetable.
He wants slaves.
Become necessary. I'm determined to ensure that we complete our mission, this mission. I'm also mindful of the increasing risk.
What mission?
That I've been briefed on, and the need to factor those risks in. They're real and significant challenges that we also have to take into consideration. The longer we stay, starting with the acute and growing risk of an attack by a terrorist group known as ISIS-K.
Here he goes with ISIS-K again, but I mean, that is prescient. Yeah, Biden, this was yesterday. Yeah, you make a speech, oh, there was a risk of a terrorist attack. Oh, we're taking precautions. Well, you've had 3 today so far. There'll probably be more. What time is it in that particular time zone anyway? Like in Afghanistan right now, it's going to be mid-afternoon, right? Or something like that, or maybe it's the middle of the night. I don't know. I hate time zones. Well, we're achieving our mission there. Yeah, getting a lot of people killed. How many casualties in the latest terrorist attack? How many more U.S. soldiers and Afghan civilians am I going to find dead by morning? And ISIS-K doesn't even exist. It's just ISIS. ISIS is a pan-national caliphate movement. That means that any of their subdivisions, they're not separate from the mother division. They're all ISIS. There is no ISIS-K. He's doing that because he doesn't want to have to acknowledge the fact to the American people that ISIS, which was suppressed for 4 years under Trump because his foreign policy made sense, roared right back the second that the weakness was detected in U.S. leadership. They were afraid of Trump. They're not afraid of Joe Biden. Not only are they not afraid of Joe Biden, they welcome his election. They think it's a great thing. They're laughing at the United States and at him.
Which is a sworn enemy of the Taliban as well. Every day we're on the ground is another day we know that ISIS-K is seeking to target the airport and attack both U.S. and allied forces and innocent civilians.
Well, they succeeded, Joe.
Personally, thus far, the Taliban have been taking steps to work with us so we can get our people out. But it's a tenuous situation. We're already had some gunfighting break out. We run a serious risk of it breaking down as time goes on. Second, the G7 leaders and the leaders of the EU, NATO, and the UN all agreed that we will stand united in our approach to the Taliban. We agreed the legitimacy of any future government depends on the approach it now takes to uphold international obligations, including to prevent Afghanistan from being used as a base for terrorism. And we agreed that none of us.
So are they going to blame these attacks on ISIS and say, well, the Taliban didn't do enough to prevent it? They might not even be wrong. Maybe the Taliban's maybe they got drunk or something like that. And these little posts that they have where people have to go through, where they check the papers and shit, like they're a legitimate regime or something. Maybe they're just inept or easily bribed. I know if I'm in Afghanistan where the average yearly income is like $600-700, I'm like, oh, you're offering me $1,000? Jesus, well, I didn't see your paperwork, but I'm sure that it's fine.
Are going to take.
But Biden wouldn't understand that. He's never.
Judge them.
He was a long-term do-nothing senator. Predominantly just stayed in the United States. He doesn't have any real-world experience of any note. He barely knows U.S. culture. It shows every time he talks about guns now, doesn't it?
By their actions, and will stay in close coordination on any steps that we take moving forward in response to the Taliban's behavior. At the same time, we renewed our humanitarian commitment to the Afghan people and supported a proposal by the Secretary General Guterres of the United Nations-led international response with unfettered humanitarian access in Afghanistan. Third,
we're going to send a bunch of money and goods to the Afghan people that'll get taken by the Taliban. But that shouldn't surprise us. You just gave them a bunch of Humvees and helicopters and shit too. Man, I mean, it must be a good time to be a Taliban member. They haven't had it this good under any prior administration, that's for sure.
Third, we talked about our mutual obligation to support refugees and evacuees currently fleeing Afghanistan. The United States will be a leader in these efforts.
See, I'm one of the good ones. I wait until I've listened to most of the video before I dislike it.
And we'll look to the international community and to our partners to do the same. We're already seeing our allies' commitment. They're bringing to their countries the Afghans who served alongside their forces.
The Netherlands actually isn't. The Netherlands decided to say fuck it, which we should have done back in May, but Joe Biden is too fucking stupid to understand timelines. Maybe he had a dyslexic moment. He thought May and August were the same thing. 5 and 8, they kind of look similar. You know, you put one squiggly line here and another straight line here, and oh la la. It's not a 5, it's an 8 now. They're basically the same month.
Translators are in their embassies, just as we're bringing to the United States those Afghans who worked alongside our forces and diplomats. We're continuing that effort. We're conducting thorough security screening in the intermediate stops they're making for anyone who is not a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident of the United States.
See, here's the problem. If you're doing these security screenings, is that person not in a safe third country? At least potentially, if they're going through certain nations that have shown a potential willingness to take refugees. Well, clearly they are. That's like saying if someone is fleeing Guatemala, but they fly through Mexico, well, when they're in Mexico, they're in a country that has already agreed to take Guatemalan refugees. Well, then they don't need to come to the United States as refugees. We don't need tens of thousands. We can't even get our own citizens out. We're going to leave a bunch of them behind in vaporized form with their bones liquefied out of their bodies because of suicide bombings. And think he wants to keep us in the country another 5 days. The end of August, the last day of August is the final withdrawal. We're drawing up to the line here, and the Taliban's already said it's going to basically fuck around with anyone left behind after that. And at this rate, that'll be several tens of thousands of people. The U.S. citizens will probably all be withdrawn, but what about the ones that are getting killed now? What if, by the way, let's say last day, most U.S. forces are gone. ISIS goes up to the gate, blows itself up, and there's 100 dead soldiers out there. Are you going to take the time to grab their remains up, stuff them into boxes, put them aboard the last plane, or are you just going to fucking leave them there and abandon them? Abandon them like you have our country. I bet the latter, Joe.
United States. Anyone arriving in the United States will have undergone a background check. And we must all work together.
We're going to do a background check on this person, and we know that his name is Farid, but we literally know nothing else about him. No paperwork or anything, but he says he worked with the American soldiers. This one soldier that he totally didn't give $50 to said that that's true. Dude, this is a powder keg situation waiting to happen.
To resettle thousands of Afghans who ultimately qualify for refugee status. The United States will
Some of them.
part, and we are already working closely with refugee organizations to rebuild a system that was purposely destroyed by my predecessor.
Oh, Trump purposely destroyed the refugee resettlement system. Yeah, like how he said that people from Central America should stay in Mexico. And Mexico agreed, and then you took it to court and you lost. Yeah, it's all Trump's fault. Everything that goes wrong in his administration, Trump is responsible somehow. Biden made a poopy in his pants. Donald Trump gave him laxatives.
Finally, we agreed to stay vigilant against terrorist threats that have metastasized around the world.
Yeah, except the ones metastasizing literally right next to the airport, Joe. Those ones, somehow we missed. ISIS amassing near the East Gate. Whoops.
We went to Afghanistan with our allies in 2001 for clear reasons.
No, we didn't. There were no clear reasons for the invasion of Afghanistan. See, here he is covering for fucking George W.'s elderly ass. The only reason given was, oh, we got to get Osama. Okay, well, we stayed in there a long time after you claimed that you killed Osama. Benazir Bhutto years before claimed he had already died. I noticed that she got assassinated fairly shortly after making that statement. This is, by the way, this is totally not mysterious or confusing to people.
One, to get the people who attacked us on 9/11 and to get Osama bin Laden. And to make sure that Afghanistan was not used again as a base from which to attack the United States or our allies.
Well, then, here's the thing. We haven't even withdrawn and he failed at the second expectation. We had 3 terrorist attacks in the last 12 hours. Okay. Hi, Joe. Thanks. You did a good job. You tried hard. Here's the gold star of effort.
We achieved that objective.
No, we
delivered
didn't.
justice to bin Laden more than a decade ago. But the current...
You mean in the raid that you said that you weren't in favor of? Because that's the official storyline. Did you know that? The official storyline is that Obama's like, hey, we know where bin Laden is. We're going to take him out. Biden says, Mr. President, I don't think it's a good idea to go in. Well, Jesus Christ, if that's true, then why are you attempting to insinuate you've got some credit for it? Not that I believe the official storyline, but it's the one that you've been peddling.
The environment looks very different than it did in 2001.
Yeah, it looks way worse.
To meet the challenges we face today. We run effective counterterrorism operations around the world, where we know terrorism is more of a threat than it is today in Afghanistan, without any permanent military presence.
Christopher DeBow, I'm predicting August 31st to turn into the next Mogadishu, Black Hawk Down. Also expecting a lot of people left behind to end up in orange jumpsuits. There probably won't be U.S. citizens left behind unless they refuse to evacuate for some reason. That would be very odd. But yeah, it's going to be kind of like Mogadishu probably. It's already is unstable. We've had 3 terrorist attacks in the last 12 hours. So
On the ground. And we can and will do the same thing in Afghanistan with our over-the-horizon counterterrorism capability. Cooperation with our closest partners on our enduring counterterrorism mission will continue to be an essential piece of our strategy. In short, we all of us agreed today that we're going to stand shoulder to shoulder with our closest partners to meet the current challenges we face in Afghanistan, just as we have for the past 20 years. We're acting in consultation and cooperation with our closest friends and fellow democracies. And I want to again thank all of our allies.
Yeah, I guess he's not taking questions here either.
Who have rallied and supported.
Why am I not surprised?
We ended the conversation today by a clear statement of all of our parts. We are going to stay united, locked at the hip in terms of what we have to do. We'll get that done.
They're gonna stay closer than Joe Biden stays to the next 10-year-old girl that he sees.
And tomorrow, I've asked Secretary Blinken to give you an update and a detailed report on exactly how many Americans are still in Afghanistan, how many have gone out, and what our projection is. So thank you again, and God bless you, and may God protect our diplomats and all those in harm's way. Thank you.
Can you guarantee every American will be?
Well, there you go. No questions, as usual. If there were any, it's not like they wouldn't have been carefully chosen beforehand. So yeah, another day, another failure for the Beijing Biden administration. I think here's my prediction. I believe that he'll probably do an address later, within the next couple of hours. They might bump Psaki or something. But the problem is last night, keep this in mind, I went live for almost 2 hours. They had several things on the White House schedule that were bumped, that were switched around. Things were delayed by hours. It felt like the White House is in chaos. Like, I think Biden saw his internal polling numbers and he freaked out, in all honesty. That's really what I think. I think that they're freaking out. I wouldn't be surprised if the same happens today. So I'm hesitant to bother doing any streaming or anything later. That's why I'm doing it now. But people did need to know there have now been 3 terrorist attacks at the Kabul airport, including at least 14 U.S. casualties, possibly hundreds of civilian casualties. This is Biden's fault. That's number 1. I figured we'd riff on Kamala Harris briefly, but nobody can stand her Squidward voice for more than 5 to 10 minutes. So I decided to cut people some slack and pivot to another subject. Yes, there are 13 dead, possibly 14. That seems to depend on the source at the moment. Mostly U.S. Marines. At the Kabul airport, there were suicide bombings, also gunfire, and earlier, actually, I think this morning, there was gunfire from some point in Kabul by ISIS, supposedly at an Italian aircraft. So they did attempt to down a civilian jetliner. To be clear, it wouldn't take them much effort to bring to bear enough firepower to actually accomplish it. If that happens, all hell will break loose. Unfortunately, what we've seen is that things are worse than expected. And so if they manage to accomplish that, it wouldn't even surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me to wake up tomorrow, because I'm on the Netherlands time zone, so the news cycle is either ahead or behind, depending on when I'm awake. It wouldn't surprise me if I wake up in a 747 or something, has been bombed over Kabul. They managed to land a direct hit with an RPG on one of the engines, and it went careening into a building, killing everyone aboard, and there's like 1,000 casualties. It wouldn't even surprise me. That's the worst part. Under most administrations, I'm like, well, shit happens. Something bad eventually happens. Under Trump, under Obama or whatever, at some point something goes wrong. Under Biden, I expect it. It's almost like a surprise if the day ends and there's not some major problem. And again, I also figured I would briefly bring up the amazing atheist, who a handful of you probably know who that is, selling out, going after David Pakman, who is no friend of mine, trust me, on the free speech issue, saying, well, we need to do more, basically, about this COVID disinfo. Government corporations need to do more. It's funny because I'm thinking back to, like, you know, the 9/11 era or the invasion of Afghanistan, and thinking how far that would have gotten us. The government and corporations will always state as an unequivocal fact, as an unchallengeable fact, whatever they want you to believe. Aversion to that is not opinion. It can indeed be itself a fact. But the thing is, the people that are right, they're censored anyway. But the amazing atheist has decided to sell out, so you see his audience is shrinking rapidly, so he decided to throw himself in with the leftoid pro-censorship crowd. Very sad. He's even throwing the other anti-SJWs under the bus, it seems, based on what I saw from his video. And then Shu tried to get into it with me, but, you know, who fucking cares? It's not 2011 anymore, so. Yeah. Liz Bandicoot saying their mission succeeded years ago, the Patriot Act. See, that's the point about Afghanistan. 9/11 happens, and the government immediately used it as a cause to try to spy on everyone and fuck everyone over. The same as that it's doing with certain other contemporary events. But we're on YouTube, so we won't say exactly what those are, but it rhymes with Movid. And then once it accomplished them, it's basically, hey, well, we still got carte blanche. Well, it's to attack people. Let's get some opium. You know, the CIA does not live on bread alone. In fact, they don't never touch this stuff. Their coke is starting to wear off. You know, they don't make it like they used to. We got to give them something harder than that. Quick, call the Chinese. Fentanyl exists now. That's what's happening. Biden has managed to completely destroy the situation in Afghanistan. The Democrat bot damage control on Twitter, by the way, is so sheer right now. It's worse than when Afghanistan started to fall days ago. Like when the Taliban first got into Kabul, they were on damage control mode. Now it's worse. Oh boy. They're like, well, Trump is the one that got us out of Afghanistan. It's really his fault. But hey, it's a success for Joe Biden somehow. Just point out, yeah, Trump wanted to withdraw us weeks ago. None of this would have happened if we had stuck to that agreement. It was Trump's withdrawal. It's Biden's botching of the withdrawal. But you're not going to see that talked about by a lot of the e-celeb leftoid crowd either. The supposedly anti-state like leftoids, yeah, they don't call out Joe Biden unless he says something bad about Bernie Sanders. But yeah, we've been going for about an hour. I think I'll cut it off now because there might be live shit later. There might be more terrorist attacks at any time because there've been, 3 already in not that many hours. So we'll see what happens. Unfortunately, I don't see good things actually at the moment. I know that Saki is supposedly going live soon, but as we've seen with her, it could be 5 hours from now and my voice won't hold forever. I still have to do the morning videos too. And I just finished several books. Keep in mind, go to Tarl Warwick Books blog on either WordPress or Blogspot. You can get your fill of occult literature. There's also merch available, link in the description. I almost hate to mention that considering the gravity of the situation that we're talking about here. Put it in the context of me ranting about the amazing atheist selling out as opposed to Beijing Biden hazarding literally thousands of people's lives, including dozens of servicemen, over a dozen apparently already dead. So, we salute them. Joe Biden will do a 180 and turn his fucking back on them like the pussy he is. That's about all. Peace out.